Hey YouTube, Paul Friedman from Maymount Media coming at you with another video blog. Today we're going to do something might be really boring to you, but one thing that I always found interesting is the equipment people choose to use when they go out and shoot landscape photography or any style of photography for that matter. Today we're going to be specifically talking about my Fujifilm landscape kit. Um, it's absolutely true what everyone says. Gear is not the be-all and end-all of photography, but you can't do photography without a camera. So what I choose to bring with me is more about what's travel-friendly, what's lightweight, and what's most likely for me to actually bring with me. I have all kinds of big equipment that I use for weddings and other such applications, portraits, and so on. But I found myself sort of limiting myself with the equipment I was bringing because of the weight and size. That was really all there was to it. It was just sheer weight and size. So I have downsized quite a bit, and now what I bring with me always is this one pack. It is the Osprey Straddles 24. Fantastic hiking pack. It's a really, really good day pack. 24 liters, not super big. It's got the sort of ventilation back here on it so that in the summertime keeps the weight off my shirt and I stay a little bit cooler. It's got a super sturdy waist strap here. This waist strap is where most of the weight is carried for me. I try to keep the weight off my shoulders if I can, and for some reason nobody really makes a camera bag that is really effective for day hikes or longer hikes. So shout out to all camera bag companies. Stop with the fancy gizmos and just give me a good waist strap, please. But in the meantime, and honestly, probably for as long as the foreseeable future can see, this is it. Osprey really nailed it with this pack. It's served me well. I've hiked many, many, many miles with it. Hundreds of miles, actually, and it still looks just about brand new. So, yeah, shout out to Osprey. Thanks for a good backpack. So we'll start right with the outside here. Tripod. This is the lightest tripod I could find. I found myself really struggling with bringing tripods, with pulling my tripod out, with using tripods. It's still definitely not the perfect tripod, but it's the best one I've been able to find so far. It is the Slick carbon fiber, what do they call this one? The 634 CF. CF just meaning carbon fiber. They make the 634 in aluminum as well. It is a 4-section twist lock. I'm not a huge fan of twist lock, but ever since we moved the company to the seacoast, salt water and sand has become a bigger issue. So honestly, twist locks are way easier to disassemble and to clean. So, and then I've got this really inexpensive, super lightweight Joby tripod, ball head. It is an Arca Swiss mount, so pretty much every single camera mount that I have works for it. And it's a pan head as well, so panos work really well. Yeah, solid tripod. It weighs about 2.4 pounds all put together, which is just perfect for me. On the other side, I always keep water bottle. Always bring water with you, even in the wintertime. I don't get thirsty, but you gotta force yourself to drink water because hydration, key. A couple other accessories out front. I keep the mini filter pouch. This is the Mindshift, the Filter Nest Mini. It is really, really minimal, which is exactly what I was looking for. For a little pouch, I keep a 3-stop ND, a 6-stop ND, and a circular polarizer, B&W through and through. And then I just use one of these little guys, a little step-down ring, so that I bought these to fit my 67mm front filter length, which is the biggest lens that I carry, and then the rest of them can be stepped down and used, so I can use all these filters for all my lenses. Also in this front pouch, I keep a bunch of snacks. Snacks are important. You never know how long you're going to be out there. Snacks are good. Not for you, little dog. Let's see, up top, a little pouch for accessories. Lens pen. These things are awesome. I have a few of them. One I keep at home for like serious cleaning, keep it in good shape. This one comes with me on the road, and it's getting, well, I'd say it's getting beat up, but it still works just fine. It's got the little brush on one side, which is great for little bits of debris, and then if you get smudgies, there's nothing better than the lens pen for cleaning your filters or your lenses on the go. Extra batteries. Fujifilm is actually, everybody always talks trash about Fujifilm batteries, but I think they're pretty good. But when you're out in the cold or if you're shooting long exposures, things like that, they die. Always bring an extra battery or two. And then I've got lights, LEDs. I've got a headlamp for if we're out shooting night photography or long hikes, or if I need my hands. And then I also keep this little keychain. This is just like a flathead and an Allen key for mounting plates. And then these are just like little rechargeable LEDs for, I got a red one and a white one for lighting up my camera. Or I do a lot of light painting with this. These really low powered lights are fantastic for light painting. They give like a really soft light and they don't fill up your frame. I find the headlamp can be a little too powerful for light painting sometimes. So cheap little LEDs are like 10 bucks, rechargeable. They work really well. I also keep lens cloths in case, you know, waves are splashing or whatever, starts to rain. You can cover them up with a good lens cloth. Can't beat a good lens cloth. And then a blower. Great tool. Always have one of those. This is a lens pen brand. It's like 12 bucks, but you can get them on Amazon for like 5 bucks. Not a big deal. Let's open up the pack. I was bringing an extra layer. This is just a little packable, puffy. I think this one's from Patagonia, but it's just a layer. Layers are great. You never know when the weather's going to change, or if you're hiking and hiking and hiking and then you stand still for 2 hours and try to get the shot. You will get cold, or for me, you know, I'll get sweaty and then I'll need an extra layer to keep me warm. These are awesome, packed down nice and small, and like it's a pretty insignificant amount of weight. It really doesn't weigh anything, to be honest with you. And then next is the actual camera bag. So because the Osprey pack isn't a camera bag, there's no security. So I use the Tenba BYOB. I think this is the 10 or 12 liter. Put the exact size in the description below, but this is a great little pack. I found it pretty inexpensive and just absolutely fantastic. Lots of little pockets. I keep, you know, extra lens caps in the sides. I keep an extra Allen wrench and a quarter or a nickel. It's actually really great for tripod mounts. Really helpful. And then this top little zipper pouch, extra SD card. Always bring extra SD cards or leave them in your bag. Another step down ring for my very small little 35 f2. I don't really shoot it for landscapes very often, but that lives in there. And then the cameras. So I've got the Fujifilm X-T20. It was my first Fujifilm camera, and the reason why I am slowly, I wouldn't say making the switch from Canon to Fujifilm, but taking Fujifilm more serious and bringing it for more and more applications. Certainly for landscape, I am primarily Fujifilm now, and this is what started it all. Traveled with me on a family trip where I really just needed to pack light, and I wanted to shoot some street photography in London and so forth. Needed something, it's just about pocketable, fits in a jacket pocket beautifully, not so much a jeans pocket, but that's what cell phones are for, right? So you really need a pocket camera, just bring your cell phone. So on here I have the 27mm f2.8, it's a 40mm equivalent in full frame for people who like to speak in those terms like me. Awesome little camera, 24 megapixels, everything you need. Pretty inexpensive. They just came out with the X-T30. I personally am not going to be upgrading. The X-T20 is all the camera that I need, especially as a backup camera. Obviously, if you're jumping into Fujifilm for the first time, you can get these for cheap now that the X-T30's out. But if you want to shoot video, I would recommend the X-T30 over this guy because they did add the extra film simulations, all the facial tracking and fancy autofocus systems and so on and so forth. But awesome camera. I shoot a lot of my street photography with this exact setup. It's a great little setup. People don't really pay much attention to me. And I love to have this with me as a backup in case my primary camera fails. Primary camera these days is the X-T3. Just amazing camera. I mean, talk about value for dollar. It's unparalleled. Obviously, it's a crop frame sensor. So some people like to make the argument that full frame sensors are more powerful, and they would be right to a certain extent, I would say, but it's all the camera I need, certainly for landscape photography. I don't do a lot of cropping in post. I don't need tons of light collecting ability. I'm usually shooting f8 or f11, and it's an absolutely amazing camera. The tactile controls on the top are just everything I was looking for in a camera. Really gets you involved in the process. Felt like I was kind of just creating photos with a computer every time I take out a modern DSLR, and this really made photography fun for me again. I found myself really enjoying the process, really enjoying the step-by-step bits. Devoted ISO dial. It's got the hidden little drive dial underneath. Then you got the devoted shutter speed dial, an exposure compensation dial, a ton of customizable buttons. We could do a full review on this thing, but a million people have done reviews on this camera. If you're looking at Fujifilm and you want to take Fujifilm pretty seriously, don't hesitate. Buy the X-T3. Absolutely amazing image quality. And don't be worried about the crop sensor thing. That's another argument for another day, though. On here, I have the 18-55 kit lens. It is the kit lens because it's technically what they sell with their cameras, and it's the kit lens in the sense that it is your sort of standard range of 18-55 millimeter. But it is an f2.8 to f4 variable. Aperture range is kind of frustrating sometimes, to be honest with you. I don't love that it's a variable aperture range, but I appreciate that they did give you as much light collecting ability as they could, and 2.8 at 18 millimeter is handy sometimes. Not so much for landscapes for me. I'm generally shooting f8 to f11. But yeah, just absolutely unbelievably sharp. Image quality is fantastic. It outperforms any other kit lens out there. So yeah, don't hesitate. If you are going to buy a Fujifilm camera for the first time, I made the mistake of buying this X-T20 body only and got just the 35 f2, thinking it was just going to be my street walking around travel camera, and I would continue to use Canon for everything else. In the end, I regretted it, and I have since bought 2 of these 18-55 lenses through the years for various reasons. But just if you're getting into Fujifilm for the first time, definitely take this kit lens seriously. I should stop calling it a kit lens. Take this lens seriously. It's awesome. A lot of my landscape photography is shot with that. In this side, I've got my longer focal length lens. This is the XC 50 to 230 millimeter, which is like your 75 to 350 equivalent. It is a 4.5 to 6.7 aperture range, and it's an all plastic construction. So I wouldn't shoot a lot of portraits with it. I wouldn't shoot a lot of weddings with it unless you're outside. But for landscapes, this is awesome. It weighs almost nothing, and the glass inside, somebody forgot to tell Fujifilm this was supposed to be a cheap lens. I mean, it's just like the glass and the image quality that comes out of this is barely noticeable, noticeably less than a higher end lens. I mean, I would almost compare this to my Canon 70 to 200. It's obviously a wider focal range, you know, with it being 50 to all the way to 230. And so because of that, I think you probably do sacrifice corner sharpness to a certain degree, but I'm always, again, shooting aperture f8 to f11, and it's stabilized. I don't know how they did it. Super lightweight, super inexpensive. I picked this one up used for literally $200. And a ton of my good photography comes out of this. You can check out our vlogs and decide for yourself if you like the image quality. But you really don't have much to lose with a lens like this. I mean, if I ever upgrade to a bigger lens, it'll be just because I'm getting into, you know, more portraits and landscapes, more portraits and weddings rather. Landscape photography, this will probably always be my choice, unless they make like an updated plastic version. I love plastic lenses for landscapes, super lightweight, like we were talking about before. Underneath, down bottom, I have the original lens I was talking about, the 35mm f2.0. Weather sealed lens. Absolutely amazing image quality. I love lenses that go down to apertures f1.4, f1.2. I mean, of course, who doesn't like wide apertures? But for the size, and f2 is still a ton of light collecting ability. You can still get that shallow depth of field, and yeah, and then it's weather sealed. This is just an amazing lens. I mean, it's probably, I think it's like $400 retail or something like that. Not a huge commitment, and what you're getting for your dollar, I would absolutely recommend this to anybody. I haven't shot the 23 f2 or the 50 f2. I've tested them in stores. They seem to hold up pretty well, but this is sort of the 50mm sort of normal field of view lens, and it's I love to shoot with this lens. This is my street photography lens pretty much all the time. If I'm leaving the house, I want to bring one camera and I don't know what I want to bring. Unless I'm bringing my little pocket setup. This is it. This is it right here. Nothing to complain about on this lens. Absolutely nothing to complain about. I recommend it to anyone. But I don't shoot this landscapes very often, to be honest with you, because this kit lens covers that focal length just fine. And so unless it's like raining or just really bad snowy conditions or something like that, I'll usually just shoot this. Sharpness at f8 they're very comparable. So yeah, awesome lens, great lens, recommend to anyone. And the pièce de résistance, 16mm f1.4. This is a weather sealed lens. This is a beast of a lens in terms of how Fujifilm lenses go. It's still very, very reasonably sized. This is probably what half of my landscape photography is shot on. I like wide angle landscape photography. I try not to only shoot this, but this is what I would consider to be just the absolute perfect landscape lens. It's 24mm focal length. When I first got it, I was so scared. I love to shoot my 16-35 full frame camera. And I was worried that 24 was going to be sort of an awkward, sort of in-between focal length. It's not really 35. You can crop it down a little bit and get that sort of tighter wide-angle feel, but you really don't get that like really warped out, 16 full-frame equivalent effect from this lens. But it taught me to only incorporate the elements in the frame that really matter. It taught me to pay attention to what made me pull my camera out of my bag in the first place, and it taught me to simplify my frames just a little bit more. 16 on a full frame, just really, you get the whole scene, everything that's there. And this, I find myself never really needing much more. Absolute worst case scenario, you can always do a pano, but to be honest, that was how I justified this lens. Instead of the 10-24 f4, I figured I could always just do a pano if I had to, and I have yet to do that. I don't think I've shot any panos that I ended up really liking. In the end, this is plenty wide enough for me. And f1.4, I mean, just amazing, absolutely fantastic, sharp all the way wide open at 1.4. It's obviously just unbelievably sharp 5.6 to f11. I think if there was one drawback to this lens, it would be the manual focus setup. It's one of these sort of clutch push-pull systems. And then obviously with Fujifilm's cameras, they have the little manual to auto switch on the front. So it's kind of like 2 steps to switch from auto to manual. You have to switch the camera into manual, and then you have to pull the clutch back from here to here. I don't love it, and my biggest complaint is how loose this is. If I set this manually and then try to adjust my filters or the aperture ring, or even just like adjust the camera on the ball head, I will always bump this and twist it. So I don't shoot manual focus with this very often. It's also a focus by wire system, as are all of these, which I'm also not a fan of. But I don't really shoot manual focus very often with Fujifilm. And I don't shoot manual focus very often on landscape photography. I prefer to sort of select my autofocus point and then punch in and just double check it. I always shoot such a deep aperture, and with this, basically at f2.8 or more, f4 even, pretty much the whole scene's in focus for the most part. You'll see in one of our vlogs I was shooting on the beach, and I used this because I really wanted to get close to a seashell on the ground. And I talked about how this is basically a macro lens. That's the only time I do find myself manually focusing, is when I'm shooting, 2 to 3 inches away from my camera, which you can do with this lens. It's basically a macro lens. Awesome lens. Highly recommend. The last lens in my kit. And the only thing left in my bag now is my Lee Filters kit. I use the Low Pro Filter Pouch 100. The Lee filter pouch is great, but the only problem is this apparatus doesn't fit in the pouch with the filters. So I went and sprung for the Low Pro pouch, which they clearly put some thought into this. It's awesome that this filter holder fits in with the filters, and then you've got all these little sleeves. I think if there's one thing that they didn't really nail down, it's the fact that this top doesn't really overlap enough. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it lets a little dirt and dust in here. Just not a crazy amount, but you know, I mean, with the leaf filter pouch, this lid sort of overlaps significantly more. If I could have the perfect filter pouch, it'd be a combination of the two. But the fact that you can fit all your 150 millimeter by 100 millimeter grads and, you know, my big stopper and all that good stuff, as well as the holder, and just have it all in one complete little pouch with a little snap to keep it shut. It's a great setup. And that just stuffs down into the bottom. It's padded enough that I don't really mind putting the cameras on top of it. I haven't had any issues yet. Yeah, the only other thing I got in here is just like an extra flashlight in case all the batteries die. I have an extra Arca mount tripod plate. That's just in these little pockets here on the waistband strap. And then whenever I am out and about, I use the Peak Designs. What do they call this thing? Speed clip? I don't know. Whatever they call this thing. The little Peak Designs clip. This is an Arca Swiss mount compatible plate. So this is what's on my XD3 all the time. Just clips into your little shoulder strap. So if you're shooting and you need to use both your hands and you don't want to take your backpack off, you just clip it in. Or if you have to walk, or if I need to put a leash on my dog or whatever I'm doing, this is always on because it's my tripod plate. I don't use an L bracket. I miss my L bracket. The L bracket is awesome for verticals. Really stable for as a tripod plate. This guy is frustrating, and it's annoying having to roll my ball head vertical for any vertical oriented photographs, but a very worthy trade-off in my eyes because I love having that quick little shoulder strap. I can just slide it right in whenever I want. So that's about it. That's my camera bag. Yeah, absolutely love shooting Fujifilm for landscapes, and I wouldn't look back at all. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments below. We will leave links and details to all the stuff that's in my bag in case you want to check it out online. I'm not sponsored by anyone, not Osprey or Fujifilm. I'm just big fan, so have no problem promoting them as a person, but professionally, yeah, definitely not affiliated with any of these people. So pick and choose as you please, and use whatever equipment works for you. I mean, that's, I think, the most important part is that you got to use whatever works for you. This just happens to be the kit that I have found most conducive to my landscape photography, because it's the kit that's going to get me to bring everything with me without feeling like I'm being weighed down or yeah. Anyway, hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. Subscribe for more videos, and give us a thumbs up if you appreciated this video. All right, we'll catch you next time. Thanks.